There are important questions business owners have to ask themselves to be successful. What value does a business bring to the market? How does a company move in a new direction? How does it ensure a profit? What do cats, astronauts, and dogs have in common?
My name is Mike Draper. I'm the founder and owner of Raygun, which has been called the greatest store in the universe by Raygun. It's a real honor. We have stores. The original one is in Des Moines, Iowa, and then we're also in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Chicago, Kansas City, and Omaha. I started selling t-shirts when I was in college, and that was as simple as going to a local screen printer, buying 100 shirts, and then standing on campus and selling them. So in the beginning, I didn't do any of the printing. When I graduated, I would travel around out east and sell t-shirts on the street. So I'd go to like New York and just stand in like Union Square, Times Square, and just sell t-shirts to people walking by. So the first several months were just me on a sidewalk selling t-shirts. By the winter of that year, so 2004, 2005, I decided that I should like open my own shop and start printing myself. A friend of mine from where I grew up right outside Des Moines, his dad had a print shop. And so I thought, well, I could move back to Des Moines, learn how to screen print with them, buy some printing equipment, and eventually open a store. In the olden times, we did all of our screen printing just in the store. And since it's grown, we're now into a much larger printing facility just nearby one of the stores. Back then it was 1,300 square feet. So, I mean, to give you an idea, this place is like 22,000 square feet. So you can fit, 15 of the original store in here. The only employee was me. So you opened the store, closed the store, printed every shirt, designed every shirt, clogged the toilet. A small company just being an absolute grind. I mean, during the holiday season when the store is open 7 days a week, if you're the only employee, you work 7 days a week. So November and December, I'd be there every single day. The rest of the year, I was only there 6 days a week. So you have Sundays off and you're there from, 7-ish in the morning till 7-ish at night. We have 3 characters that in our world are like the de facto heads of the company. There's Gary the cat, Nitro the spaceman, and Pancake the dog. And each of them have like a backstory. Gary came first as the cat, was designed by one of just our former designers. The name Gary came about because when we were opening like the Des Moines store, we had Raygun spelled out in like huge letters. But they were all just on these giant like 4 foot by 4 foot Coroplast sheets in a window. And one person just rearranged them to say Gary. And we took a picture of it. We're like, oh, damn it, we ordered the wrong sign. And so we started referring to the cat as Gary. Nitro was the spaceman, came along based on a kid's book about Des Moines that we wrote where we introduced like him as a character. And then Pancake the dog is from Magnet, Nebraska, and has kind of joined the group. People go to our blog, they'll find that the 3 of them are who like comments on things and write. So I'm not doing any of or I do some, but I'm not really doing much of the writing as me. There's a whole group of designers and contributors, and we essentially all speak through these like 3 characters. As the company has grown, we've never had necessarily something like a viral hit or an explosion or like a cash infusion where we just suddenly leapt up into the big leagues. It is really just steady incremental growth. So from 2005, the original store, to 2007, I was the only employee. Hired 1 or 2 people in 2007, expanded a little bit in 2008, opened Iowa City in 2009, opened Kansas City in 2014, moved into a bigger store in Des Moines in 2015, Cedar Rapids in 16, Chicago in 19, Omaha in 20. Yeah, if you're looking to start a company, you have to really want to run a company. It's as simple as that. And it sounds like, yeah, duh. But some people will think, well, I'm going to start a company because I want to, make my own hours, or I want to make more money, or do what I love all the time. Well, you're not going to do really any of that. You can make your own hours in theory, but they're just going to be all the time. I mean, to be successful in this, you just have to work constantly. Could I work, overnight instead of during the day? Sure. But you're going to end up working 10 to 12 hours a day. It doesn't matter when they are. At the same time, the amount of time you're pouring into this, you're not making more per hour than you probably could in another job working the same amount of time. And then in terms of the doing what you love, I love coming up with the designs, sloganeering. That's a minority of my time. A lot of my time is dealing with pointless bullshit and paperwork and payroll questions and accounting and talking to it goes on and on. So even a majority of my day is stuff that I don't want to be doing, and I own the place.
Right.
And so it's always going to be a balance. And at the end of the day, you should be running it because you want to do all of those things. If you want to run a company, there's a cost to that. And a cost is essentially not being totally in control of your life. The closest thing I've done to running the company is essentially like being a parent, in that it's its own thing, but you're connected to it. It's just impossible to totally disassociate the two. But it's at the same time, you just realize that's why, being an entrepreneur isn't necessarily the be all to end all. For some reason in America, it's put on somewhat of a pedestal.
Right.
It's an occupation like any other.
Sure.
Some people are not better at it, but more predisposed to, excel at it. Some people aren't.
Right.
That's not a mark of your accomplishment. You might be a phenomenal graphic designer, but you wouldn't do well running a graphic design company. Exactly. That's not to say one is better than the other. It's just to say there's pros and cons to everything. Yes. There's plenty of cons to running a company.
Right.
There's plenty of... Right. And so I don't look at somebody who started a company and it didn't work out as necessarily a failure. You just realize, God, there's so many things that go into it. There could be, maybe they didn't feel like it anymore. Maybe there was a personal issue. It's just, it's hard to get too judgmental from the outside. What we do is, pop art. It makes it look simple because it's just some funny words on a shirt. Sure. Everybody has, funny ideas for t-shirts.
Sure.
The trick is coming up with content hundreds of times a year, year after year.
Right.
That's where it really starts to get tricky, is how you actually take this machine that can crank out pop art and come up with enough content to fill up a decade. It's a work in progress on two fronts, coming up with our content, but also, there's more competition in the marketplace, kind of as we've, grown and, not necessarily pioneered, but really wrapped our arms around the, words on a shirt type format.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of other companies that have come up in the similar space.
Right.
With the idea being that you release shirts, it's slogan based, it's topical, and it's fast.
Right.
And there's, some changes in technology, not just the website, but different printing processes that allow more people to get into that type of business with a lower barrier of entry in terms of ease of selling online, ease of production.
Right.
But at the same time, you still have to come up with content that sells.
Right.
And it's a moving target in terms of what people are interested in. So we have to keep different subject matters in mind, not just, topical, political, but also, regional based, sports, that kind of thing, because people's general interests will wane and wax depending on the year and the time of year. Wow. Yeah, the inventory, since we do all of our own production, we can handle in a little bit more of a flexible way. There's finished inventory that we keep in stock for our website or in stores, and then there's a lot of blank t-shirts that can be turned pretty quickly into inventory. So you might release a shirt, you sell, you print 30, say you sell 100, we can pretty quickly print that extra 70, and then we just print as needed. So we're not stuck with a ton of inventory, but at the same time, we're able to turn around inventory pretty quickly.
Nice.
And so it makes for a flexible way to not only produce inventory, but essentially to have a never-ending supply without having to print a never-ending supply up front.
Right.
And so we kind of keep those two tiers of inventory, and then at the same time, behind me there's our large wall of screens. So each design is going to have its own silk screen. Sure. So you are going to be limited in terms of how much stuff you can keep in that regard.
Absolutely.
So as new stuff comes in, old stuff has to go out. You sometimes don't really have a choice in whether you're going to do it or not. So you're kind of like, we're out of, you might be printing in the store and you think, well, we're out of space.
Right.
So if you want to keep growing and take on more clients, you have to find a bigger space.
Absolutely.
And that's, you kind of get forced into these situations a little bit, in that if you want to keep growing, you kind of have to move into a bigger spot. It can be intimidating, obviously, because you're usually having to jump. It's not like a steady march. You're kind of having to hop up a whole rung.
Right.
And so you think, well, we'll take on this new space. At our current printing volume, we can handle 80% of the cost of this new space.
Right.
And then we're going to have to, with the excess space and capacity, round up further sales to make up the difference.
Right.
I didn't take out a loan when I opened the store, primarily because screen printing equipment on the small end is pretty affordable. So, saved up money selling t-shirts on the street, bought the screen printing equipment, printed out of my parents' basement for a little while, moved into the store, did all the build out work with a friend, and then the tenant improvement money that we got for the new store essentially covered the cost of construction.
Sure.
So yeah, initially it was entirely self-funded.
Right.
By 2006 though, there was less than $3,000 in the bank. So you're just,
Right.
Even after a year of endless work, you don't have a whole lot to show for it financially.
Right.
So I'm not sure I would recommend, starting a company with no money. Everything is a mix of hard work and circumstance. And if there had been some sort of, major unforeseen bill from anywhere, company, government, anything, or unforeseen, medical issue, and I can't work for a large stretch, that's pretty much it. We would have been kind of dead in the water at that point. So, the thing that can be frustrating about school or a, bigger company is what's, easy about school in a big company, and that, a semester starts here, ends here,
Right.
These are your classes, this is how you're graded, this is doing the grading. A big company also, it's, this is kind of the track, these are the paths you can take.
Right.
Whereas when you start a little business, it's literally just staring into like an open field, but it's also nighttime, there's like no moon, and the field is filled with posts. And so you just gotta go wandering out in the field in like any direction, like bump into posts, and then move once you hit those posts, and the goal is to like just keep moving forward. Okay. So it's,
right.
You might look back and say this was our trajectory, but to get there you were just all over the place. Absolutely. And it was a pretty painful walk. Yeah, even in the beginning, it was essentially sell t-shirts any way possible. When it was just a little store and me with a press,
Right.
I was either selling shirts that people would walk in and just buy off the shelf, or I was printing for other people up there.
Sure.
So
Okay.
you think I've got a computer and a screen press.
Right.
I'm like desperate for money.
Right.
Anybody that offers money in any capacity,
Right.
I will, work with. And so the original iteration of the company is not that much different from how we do it now. There's the stores, there's the website, there's wholesaling our stuff to other stores, and then there's custom printing for other clients. And that's still what we do, just on a bigger scale. We would like to keep growing all sides of the company, with just essentially coming up with more content for the stores, selling stuff out of the stores, coming up with non-product content, so just humorous general content, and then working with a range of other customers to come up with product for them. So there's no real pivot on the horizon in terms of doing something totally new and unexpected.
Right.
It's, just doing more of the same and trying to stay in business, I guess.
Sure, and it's worked well.
Yeah, so far so good.
Lift off 30 minutes after the hour.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked that episode, subscribe to stay tuned. We have more on the way.
Business Blueprint was created to share unique journeys from diverse communities, and we would love to tell your story.
If you're interested, check out our website or DM us on our socials. And as always, leave us a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.